Camera setup. Hi, how's it going today? I'm Richard from Sunshine Renewable Energy. What we're doing today is we're kind of going over some of the equipment that we sell, from heat pumps to solar, standby generators, electrical service, ETS for time of day meter, ducted heat pumps. We're going to kind of go through low level on basically all of this stuff. And it takes about maybe a half an hour of me just spieling. And then you can start asking your questions on the right-hand side of the screen, and we'll try and answer as many as we can. And probably at about the hour and 15 mark, we'll stop. So heat pumps. There are a few different styles of heat pumps that we offer. The one that everybody kind of recognizes nowadays is the mini split heat pump. Essentially, you have your indoor unit, which pairs up with your outdoor unit. You can have a single zone, which is what we generally recommend pretty much all the time, because the single zone heat pumps are optimized for each other. They're the most efficient. They go down to the coldest temperatures. They put out the most heat at the colder temperatures. So like all of the technology, the latest technology is in the single zones. And then eventually it kind of filters down through to the multi-zones, but you can lose a lot of efficiency by doing that. And it's really not that much money to do two singles versus a dual. So the indoor head that we were all used to, all heat pumps work the same. Essentially inside here, you have your coil. The coil is in behind the fan there. So that looks kind of like a car radiator, but even tighter. And essentially that is a heat exchanger, actually right here. That is what is inside every heat pump. Get up on that. So that is what actually takes the heat out of the room or delivers the heat into the room. And a basic kind of explanation as to how a heat pump works and why it's so efficient is because a heat pump doesn't actually generate any heat. It doesn't have to burn a fuel in order to provide a heat source. What it does is it effectively steals the heat. So there's always heat in the air, even when it's cold outside, down to minus 374 degrees. There is heat in the air. We might not necessarily feel it as people because it gets cold and snot freezes inside our nose and stuff like that. But the heat pump doesn't know that, right? So it's effectively taking what existing heat is in the air outside in the coldest and of the coldest days in the wintertime. And then it's using a refrigerant which has a very low flash point, and it is compressing that refrigerant through the machine. It's all in a vacuum, so it's like airtight. And then it's dispersing that heat throughout that coil. And then in behind here is a fan. And then that sucks the air from the top of the machine through the coil and then bursts it out into the room where you are. And then in the summertime, it does the exact opposite. What it's doing is it's actually taking the heat from your house and delivering it back outside. So in the summer months, it's actually putting out warm air here, but cool here. And a byproduct of that cooling is also dehumidification. So these things can suck out a ton of water. You can actually go out on a really hot, humid day, even last week, and while it's running, you can fill a pint glass every 35, 45 minutes, easy. So that's kind of like the basics of a heat pump. You can have the multi-zones where you can have one compressor and 5 or 6 heads. We try to avoid that wherever possible, as I'd mentioned before. And then there are a few different ways of configuring these heat pumps. All right, I'll put this filter back in. So you have your traditional mini split head. Biggest complaint I get is I don't like the look of it. So there are a couple of different options nowadays. One that we've been doing a lot recently is the floor mount model. So this is essentially that, just a different configuration that sits on the floor. It can sit above a baseboard heater, right, like a hot water baseboard radiator. And you can mount it on the wall any way up, right? They look pretty cool when they're on the wall. They actually work really good. A little bit, you sacrifice a little bit of efficiency, but not a whole lot to worth considering. It's only $300 more to go this option than it is with that. And then the other one that we are doing a lot of now is attic ducted units. So essentially, if you have a 2-story house and you have like 4, 5, 6 bedrooms upstairs, essentially that is the system that we recommend. So that goes up into the attic. You have a return air, right? And it's hard to do this. A return air that is right here. And essentially what that's doing is it's sucking the air in through the machine. All right. It's coming through the machine, out the vents, out the ducts, and then through the vents. And then it gets sucked back to the middle again. And it keeps repeating that process. And that can be in 1, 2, you can't see it there, 3, 4, 5, 6 bedrooms, as I'd said before. So there's a lot of flexibility with that. The other thing that's really cool about them as well is when this machine is actually in your house and it's in your living room, you don't notice it at all, right? When that's actually in your room, it is actually oversized. They don't make heat pumps small enough for bedrooms. You need like 2, 3, maybe 4,000 BTUs. The smallest they do is a 7. So it short cycles. So this has twofold. One, your efficiency gets degraded because it's just coming on and off and on and off all the time. And then the fact that it is coming on and off and on and off all the time can sometimes, for some people, get a little bit annoying. But no matter what, I mean, it's better than a window shaker or a portable you put in. It's like all the time, right? This is still way quieter than that, of course. So yeah, that's kind of like the entry level of the basics of the mini split heat pumps. So now we're going to kind of quickly pop over here. We caught Chris there, one of our electricians. So this is a ducted heat pump. So a ducted heat pump would be for people who have ductwork already existing in their house. If you're building a house, you might want to have the ductwork as well. Yeah, this essentially runs through the entire house. Those are room by room, unless you're doing the attic ducted system, or floor by floor anyway. And this is an air handler. So this is essentially there's a giant coil inside here as well. And that goes into your plenum, out through the ductwork, through the whole house. They work great. It's a big unit. It is a little bit noisier than what the mini splits are, but they do have some new ones out now that are a little bit sleeker and have the inverter, so they're actually a bit more efficient. So that's kind of like the low level basics on the heat pumps and what they have to offer and whatnot. So, this one, I didn't have this one at the last session, but I just wanted to point this out because it's a really good thing to think about when buying a heat pump. Just like anything in life, there are good heat pumps and there are bad heat pumps. The heat pump is a huge investment, and you are either buying one of these, usually maybe for even $1,000 less, but it should be. I mean, shouldn't even be bought, to be honest with you. But I mean, you can just see the build quality, right? In one of these, this is actually like 3 years old. The customer that bought this originally knew that they had wasted their money, so we actually went in and replaced it with a proper heat pump. But these are just all like they're garbage, right? And you have to be so careful because your efficiency and whether it works or not, if it's breaking down, this one, if I can even get parts for it 3 years down the road, which is insane, right? So this is a Fujitsu heat pump, right? If I was buying one of these, I can buy those for $700 or $800, right? Maybe 1,000 at the most. If I'm buying one of these, this is 2,500 or more. So the difference in price is huge. So unless you're literally paying like $2,500 or $1,800 for one of these, I mean, even still, don't waste your money. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of money. See it every day. even down to like the compression, the sound dampering for the compressors and stuff like that. It just, anyways, you can see. Right? I know you need to, it's something to be very careful of. So yeah, and then the other thing with heat pumps, you also want to know what the warranty is, right? With Fujitsu, which is our #1 seller, it comes with a 12-year parts, 10-year labor warranty. And the way that warranty works is for the first year, you pay nothing. Years 2 to 10, if we have to come out for a repair, and that's if, they don't break down that often, it's $149. So if I'm changing a compressor, which, I mean, they don't go in that kind of time really, unless there's something underlying in the machine. But that could be like an $1,800 repair, right? And that could be an $1,800 repair on a piece of junk. So yeah, that's why those go away, because they don't want to spend the money to fix them, even though they already bought them. Yeah, anyways, so quickly, I'm going to just jump into this electrical, all right, because I get a lot of electrical questions when I'm out on the road. All right, a little bit closer here. So, breaker panel, 100, 125 amp, 200 amp, 400 amp. 100, typically like 90% of the time, if you heat with oil. Can you still fit a heat pump in your house? Yes, you absolutely can. Provided you don't have a hot tub and heat your swimming pool if you have one. 100 amps is definitely enough room to put in a couple of heat pumps if there's no extra load already existing in there, other than your stove and your hot water maybe, and your dryer. So yes, you can fit it in there. Sometimes you have a breaker panel that looks full. It's not necessarily full, because these ones here you can actually get mini breakers for. I think there might be some in here actually. Yeah, so you can double down some of these. Oh, yeah, no minis. So you can double down these, right? And then we have kind of like our old glass fuse, right? These are horrible panels, but they still work. So if you have 2 spaces, I need 2 spaces for every heat pump that I put in. So if you're putting in 2 heat pumps, I need 4 spaces. If you're putting in 3 heat pumps, I need 6. These are often pretty much full. It doesn't mean that it's all over. We can do one of 2 things. We can put a pony panel in, which is basically a mini panel. We steal 2 circuits here. We open up 2, 4, 6, or 8 more circuits off to the side so that we can put our heat pumps in, maybe do something else for you down the road. Or we can swap out this to a breaker panel, right? I mean, it's $1,250 to do that. At that point, you should probably be looking at doing a service upgrade to 200 amps, because eventually every house is going to need 200 amps. And that's typically around $3,900. We do have to bring the house up to current code if we're going from any amperage. So if you're going from 60 to 100, 100 to 125, 125 to 200, you have to have the house up to current electrical code. So it is a little bit more expensive to do it at that time, but it's a one-time thing. You're never going to have to do that again. And down the road, you can have heat pumps, you can have an electric car, you know, all these things that are kind of coming down the future. Bigger solar array on your roof if you're doing solar. Excuse me. Yeah, so that's that. Quickly on generators, we do Generalink standby generators. These things are awesome. This thing will run your whole house. They are not cheap. But if you were trying to get, you know, a more affordable way of getting a generator hookup in your house, you can get what we call a generator panel. Kind of the quick basics of these. They both operate the same kind of way. This one's automatically done. This one's done by actually turning on your generator, plugging it in, and then essentially what these 2 panels are doing is they're isolating themselves from the main panel so that you're not backfeeding the grid. Because back in the days, people would just throw it in their dryer plug, start up the generator, you're juicing the lines, linesman comes out, touches the cable, gets lit up, they're not happy. So you actually have to have a Nova Scotia Power inspection to make sure that the grid is not live when they believe it's down. So yeah, so this is around I don't know, $1,500 to $1,800 with your permits and inspections and everything like that. This one here with a generator, this is a 22 kilowatt. This run a big house. You're looking at, you know, probably around $14,000 or $15,000. But again, it'll literally run your whole house. They're really cool. ETS. So ETS is another big thing that we do. So this is an ETS unit. Essentially what this is a metal box with a bank of bricks. If anybody's heard of the time of day meter through Nova Scotia Power, this is how you get on it. So you have to have ETS in order to get on Nova Scotia Power's time of day meter. The way the time of day meter works is Monday to Friday from 11 p.m. until 7 a.m. Friday from 11 p.m. until Monday morning at 7 a.m. So your whole weekends. All your national and provincial holidays, they charge you half price electricity for the whole house. All right. So everything that goes on in those house between those hours is running on half price electricity. This is taking a charge during that time and heating up those bricks so that they can give off the heat during the day. And they're doing it at half price. That's kind of the common goal. What we also do with the time of day meter is we also put a timer on your hot water tank. So your hot water tank charges at night. And then your hot water becomes half price, provided you don't go crazy or have teenagers that go mental on hot water. So yeah, it is a very powerful tool in the energy solution. We do these often in basements because you don't need air conditioning in basements. And when you're on the time of day meter, it will actually benefit the heat pump because the heat pump is 300 to 600% efficient during its time during the winter, right? So when you're in your shoulder seasons, you're getting like 600% of it. It uses like nothing, right? When you're January, February into March, that's when you're getting 3, right? But when that's running on half price electricity, 3 to 1 becomes 6 to 1. 6 to 1 becomes 12 to 1. Your savings go big for the most efficient thing in your house, right? It is really cool. And then I forgot to do the solar. We're actually really getting into solar right now. It's really, really probably the best time ever to get into solar if you're ever thinking about it down the road because of Efficiency Nova Scotia's rebate program. It is the best in Canada. So you can get up to $6,000 off of your solar system up to 10 kilowatts. So you can get essentially on maybe, you know, like a $28,000 purchase, you get $6,000 of that back. That makes these things pay for themselves in about 10 to 12 years at the most. We try to be conservative with that as far as that goes, but man, like they really produce a lot of power. You have to have a big array to get like lots of power, but it is a really cool thing. And then this is your inverter, right? So basically your solar panels tie in with your inverter. We use what they call a DC optimizer. So we still have individual power panel, but this kind of keeps it in DC before it throws it onto the grid. Because sometime in the near future, I will have one here. Because someday we're all probably going to have batteries in our house, and we're going to be pulling from our batteries during the peak periods, and then storing our power during during the peak periods, and then drawing it during the off-peak periods. So that is something that is definitely most likely coming. So I'll get to some of those after. Yeah, and then the last one that I wanted to show you here is hot water tanks. We get a lot of questions about these as well. So heat pump hot water tank, right? We don't sell a lot of them, but if you have like family of 4 or so, this thing is actually a really good saver. I mean, it runs on a couple $100 a year. This is your heat pump. This is your hot water tank. It's a heat exchanger that goes down to the bottom of the tank. The hot water it's really fast. It's the equivalent to, like an average hot water tank recovery time. So it does recover very good. It does have electric heaters in there for like high demand if you were going crazy. And then the other one that we do here is the marathon tank. This one here comes with a lifetime warranty. So it's a polyurethane lined titanium coating, has R20 insulation in it. So the insulation is like that thick. I know we have one at our house, and when we had that storm there in the fall, we had no power for 5 days. And on the fifth day before the power came back on, we still had hot water to do dishes. So it was pretty cool. All right, so I think I've gone over everything here. Maybe we'll just go into straight to questions. And okay, so is it possible to run a heat pump with a solar power system? I mean, in theory, yes, but solar is a little bit different. All right, solar in Nova Scotia is called what we call grid tied. All right, so you're creating your power in your solar panels, and then you're feeding the grid. And essentially, when you're using power, your needle is going like this. All right, and when your solar panel is on with the sun out, your needle is going like that. So you're building credits through the power grid. Because you create more power in the summer and you use less, you're kind of storing those for the winter when you're actually heating and using more energy. You are feeding the grid. So you could technically, right, do a heat pump from solar panels if you had a battery, and then you're pulling from the battery to feed the heat pump, right? So the solar feeds the battery feeds the house, right? And then sometimes the battery is charging from the grid, and other times it's charging from the solar. So that is possible. You could go off grid, and then you have a bunch of batteries and maybe a standby generator for any time where the sun's not out for a long period of time. But yeah. Okay, so savings. All right, this is another one that I get all the time. Savings versus electric heat. Wow, amazing, right? Like these things, you can almost count on close to $1 a square foot in savings, especially for the main floor. Anyways, you put it in a bedroom, it's not about savings; it's about air conditioning. But if you put this on the main floor of your house, a lot of that heat will go up. So you can save a lot of money, like a ridiculous amount of money, given the right circumstances. Versus oil right now, I mean, oil is just right. It's here today, gone tomorrow. I mean, you're paying 50, 60 cents a liter of oil a few weeks ago. So, I mean, it's hard to predict the payback period in oil. It all depends on the price. But we equate our heat pumps, just from kind of experience over time, to about 70 cents a liter of oil. So any money that you're spending over 70 cents a liter, a heat pump will get you to break even. If oil is $1 a liter, it can save you 30 cents on the dollar. If it's $1.50 a liter, it can save you 80 cents on the dollar. So, I mean, you just don't know where it's going to be. And if it's 50 cents, it costs you 20 cents on the dollar. So I don't expect to see oil down this low forever. But yeah, right now, can't really do anything for you as far as savings. Do we provide a maintenance plan? Yes, we do. So we have a maintenance plan, depending on whether you have like the warranty here or a warranty there. The price is slightly different. We'll work on pretty much any machine. So there's one or two out there that we don't deal with anymore for personal reasons. So yeah, so we can service anything. We can with your heat pump purchase. The one thing that you really do have to be careful of, and I already did this out earlier, is your filters. You have to clean your filters, right? These filters do get dirty over time, right? So if you don't clean your filters, you're going to gum up your machine. Your air is not going to go through your machine, and it won't be able to provide heat or air conditioning for you. The other thing that you need to do is get these things cleaned, right? So once you have this in there, it is moving millions of cubic feet per year, millions. So as over time, some of that dirt will get through that filter and it will get on the coil, especially in air conditioning season. All right, because now your coil is wet, and any dirt is going to grab onto it and stick there. And then when there's not wet no more, it's going to dry and cake onto that coil. So over time, this thing will get gummed up, right? I know they talk about black mold and stuff like that. That's some idiot that did not get their heat pump clean for like 10 years, right? It's disgusting in there, all right? You leave it too long, you will be sick of yourself when you see that thing cleaned out, right? They can nasty, black, nasty stuff, right? So getting it clean, very important. It's 150 bucks, but it'll save you that and more over time. Your machine's less likely to break down. You're going to get the most output out of your heat pump, both for heating and air conditioning. And it's just good practice. When you have a machine that's worth a lot of money, you make sure it gets checked over once in a while, every year, or at the most 2. All right. Heat pump not doing good enough job and doesn't heat upstairs. Should I replace it, or can I build onto it? So that's a really hard question. So I would really have to kind of see heat pump about 11 years old, not doing good enough job and doesn't heat upstairs. Should I replace it, or can I build onto it? I can't give you good advice on that question without actually seeing. It's pretty important. I mean, we really do have to come out and see your house. There's a lot of factors involved in installing a heat pump. We have to know you have enough power. We have to know you have enough breakers. We have to know that what kind of panel it is, so that when we come out to do it, that we bring the right breakers, because they're not all interchangeable. So like that one, it would probably be best for me to come out and see. I come out for free, by the way. It doesn't cost anything. Me and Brent here, who's handling the questions, we're happy to come out anytime. So how quickly can a heat pump be installed? I mean, it all depends on the heat pump. If you're doing like a single zone and it's a straight up 8-foot run, you can be in and out of there in a couple of hours, and the electrical is on the same side. If it's a longer run, or if there's complications with turns and elbows and stuff like that, it can drag on for 2, 3, 4 hours for a mini split, right? Ducted heat pump, you can expect us to be there for an entire day. And an attic ducted unit where we have to build all the ductwork in the attic and stuff like that, you're probably looking at a day and a half or so, because we also have to build the ductwork. Excuse me, just to take a sip. Loss difference between floor model. It's loss difference between this and this. 5% somewhere. Cost difference. The cost difference between this and this is about 300 bucks, something like that. It's around $300. What is the best fan setting to use? That's a really good question, because I go out every winter and have to fix this like 10 or 15 times. Your heat pump's on, right? You want it on the highest level. So it actually would go up to about here. All right. You want it on the highest level so that it's blowing out as far away from the machine as you can get it. So if you have a wide open straight out like this, you want to blow it as far away as you can get it. If you have a wall right there, and you want to get it off to the right. If you have a wall right there, you want to get it off to the left. You want to get that air going away from the machine. All right. So the further that air goes away from the machine, the longer it's going to run. Because if you put something here and you put something right on the other side of it, what happens is the air comes out, bounces back to the machine shuts off. That's exactly what happens in bedrooms, right? Because you put it in the bedroom, even if you put it at the door, right? Let's say that solar panel there is the door, right? The heat pump doesn't blow like a laser, right? It blows like this, right? And that gets hit on this side of the door and that side of the door. It builds back into the roof, machine shuts down. Right? Then it waits and waits and waits and waits, and then it'll come back on again, and it'll do the exact same thing over and over and over again. Multi-zone heat pumps less efficient than a single zone? Absolutely. We kind of went over this at the beginning, but I can quickly go over it again. Single zone heat pumps, always the best. I generally recommend, at least for the main floor of a house, because it is the money maker, right? So if you're ever going to make any money on your heat pump, it's going to be that one that's on your first floor. All right. So the first floor heat pump is the most important. It will save you 50% of any savings that you're going to get out of a heat pump. So that's how significant it is. If you're doing upstairs in an attic, I mean, there's a little bit of efficiency lost with one of those anyways. And you're doing a basement doesn't need as heat because you're below grade. and the insulation of the ground is very good. So you don't need as much heat in the basement. So if you're doing upstairs and basement, you can put those on a multi-zone, but certainly every time, highly recommend single zone on the main floor. Time of day meter, how do I qualify for it? You need an ETS. All right, you have to have an ETS in order to get on the time of day meter. It's the only way to get on the time of day meter. Believe me, I tried other ways. So you have to have storage. The whole point of time of day meter is that you are storing energy during the peak period. There is a benefit to Nova Scotia Power for you doing that. That is why they offer that program. Any more? Who will come repair my heat pump? So if you have a heat pump, we repair it, right? We send one of our technicians out to do the repairs. So it's us ourselves. Once in a while, things get crazy, and we have a few partners that we have help us out. But ultimately, we are the ones taking care of your machine. Cost of a heat pump, 30 by 30. So 30 by 30. So sizing of a heat pump, roughly, for just general rule of thumb, 9,000 BTU will do 600 to 800 square feet. A 12,000 BTU will do 800 to 1,000 in a Fujitsu. It's a little bit less with the LG. 800 to 1,000 feet, maybe even 1,100 with the 12. All right, and then anything above 12, you're looking at the 15, and then anything above, 1,400 square feet roughly, you should be looking at a second heat pump. All right, because there's chances are, even if you put a 24,000 BTU, and believe me, the head is like this. It's like this. It's another 3 inches deeper. The fan is huge, right? So oversizing is a huge problem in this industry. I see it all the time. You got a little tiny room. There's a wall right there, and there's a fan. And when it comes on, and you're reading your newspaper, the fan comes on. All of a sudden, right? Your fan's just blowing the wind around, right? And all it does is comes on and shuts off. Comes on and shuts off. You want this thing running all the time. All right. The longer it runs, the more likely, the more it's going to save you. So a 12,000 BTU Fujitsu is on special right now. There's $300 off from us and the manufacturer. So it's $39.95 for a typical install plus tax. And you would be able to get $200 rebate from Efficiency Nova Scotia. It's not a huge amount, but it's better than a kick in the bum. Cost of ETS. So the ETS, when you're talking about ETS, we have to pull a permit. We put a timer on the hot water tank. It has to be appropriately sized for the space. You can't buy a little dinky one the size of this and expect them to pass you on time of day meter. I know the guy there, he won't do it. You have to have appropriate ETS in order to fill the space. A 408, which is their number one seller, which is kind of like the minimum we're generally looking for if we're putting one in. You're looking at about $2,400, I think, plus tax when you have your ETS wired in, permits, inspection, timer. Can a dual zone be used for a semi-detached house? I mean, what? Okay, so I'd imagine that's semi-detached house. Yes, you can. I mean, you can put them pretty much anywhere. There's very few times where we have to walk away from a job. The only ones that you kind of can run into trouble from time to time is condo corps. They suck. But we still deal with them all the time. So they can generally be done, but they always want to give you permission first. I just do it and beg for forgiveness myself. But are there any other questions there that I'm missing?
Best fan speed, auto, high, medium, or low?
Oh, sorry. Best fan speed, auto, high, medium, or low? High. High. No auto, please. Don't do auto. And the other thing as well is if your heat pump has this option, oscillate, where you can have it go up and down or stuff, don't do it. Point it out, across, straight through to the furthest space that you can possibly get. All right. You want to get it away from the machine, all the time. All right. So high fan speed, no auto. Don't use auto for anything. All right. You have 3 settings on a heat pump. You can use dehumidification if you want. There's no fan settings. It just runs. You can use heat or you can use cool. Don't use auto. It is a pain in the bum on every single machine that I've ever seen. How much space do you need for the outdoor unit? I think the outdoor unit is about, I think it's about 28 inches wide. And then you're about 26 high. It has to be out from the wall by a little bit here, like 10 inches or something like that. So you don't want anything directly on the side of here. You can't have anything directly on the side, but you can, like, you know, a foot or two either side. You can't put anything in front. It can go below a deck in a lot of cases, but we still have to have enough to get the lid off in order to service it. But you can't lattice in a deck. You can't enclose it. All right. As I said kind of at the beginning, these things are actually taking the heat out of the air. So they're putting out colder air in the wintertime when they're heating. And if you enclose your deck underneath and it's putting out colder air, the temperature is just going to drop underneath that deck and you're going to make the machine work harder. So you don't enclose a deck once you have. How does Wi-Fi work? Good question. That is not a question for me. That's a question for one of my techs. But most of these, if they have, like the single zones, all have Wi-Fi built in them in the Fujitsu. And if they don't have them built in, they have them available as a secondary purchase, depending on the model. There's different prices. And Fujitsu has their app, their FG Layer app, so you can control it from your phone. Right? I'm not kind of going back to that actually though. I'm not a huge fan of having control over this thing. All right. My advice to people generally is you set it in the heating season and you set it to the temperature that you want and then you just leave it alone. Right. You only come back to it to clean the filters every so often. Right. Every 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, at least every quarter, you got to do those filters. Some houses are dirtier. Some houses have pets. You know, it all depends on your house, right? Older houses get dusty, right? So yeah, so I mean, I would definitely make sure that you're doing that. Advantages and disadvantages of a heat pump shelter, right? Like a heat pump shelter, you know, we sell them. I'm not a huge fan of them, or if there's any need for them at all. I mean, it's built for outside. It's supposed to be out there. It knows it's going to be in the cold. It knows it's going to be in the wet. It knows it's going to be in the wind, right? It knows it's going to be in the snow. So it is built for outside. You're spending money, and sometimes it can actually be a hassle for us from the servicing perspective, is having to take the whole friggin' thing off and then put it back on at the end. And then that's going to deteriorate the stability of it as well. Okay, so yeah, so I don't really have the brackets. Do you want to maybe go out in the bracket? Yeah. So how do you fasten these things to a house? There's 2 ways that we do them, right? One, Chris, I'm just going to move the camera over to you here, but it's okay. You can just say hello. So this is a stand, right? So if you don't have enough concrete, we need like 5 or 6 inches at the bottom of the house. This is a stand that it goes on. You know, you're 18 inches off the ground. It's bolted to it. Not our favorite method of installing, but sometimes you just got no choice, right? You just got to put it however it's going to be able to go in. But, you know, we put a stone down. What we do is we kind of put some screening down, a few bags of screening, pack it all down, then put a stone on it, and then put the stand on top of that. It's freestanding, right? You know, I've seen them in the past blow over in really heavy winds. Oh, you got the giant ones yet? Yeah. All right, so this is more for a ducted system. This is a big wall bracket, but anyways, this is a bracket that we would anchor onto the wall. There's another one that's a step-up bracket, which is kind of like, it's only got a section this big on it. And then what it does is it comes out and goes up, and then your platform is here. It's called the step-up bracket. So that can come out so you don't have to have a big concrete base in order to fasten it onto. So that's generally the preferred method for us to attach. We do not attach to the frame of the house whatsoever. If you want it attached to the frame of the house, go somewhere else and buy your heat pump, because you'll have me back complaining about noise issues because it'll be vibrating inside. What setting should be on in summertime, cool or dry? Me personally, I think that you should put it in cool, because cool it will get you the temperature that you're looking for. It's temperature driven. The dehumidification it's air conditioning 22. So if you put your heat pump on air conditioning in 22, you're going to get the exact same thing that you're going to get out of the dehumidification. So maybe you want it 21, or maybe you want it 23. You put it in air conditioning 21, then you're going to get exactly what you want. You put it in 23 because you're a little bit chilly, you're going to get that. But the dehumidification is actually air conditioning 22. Another thing that I get a lot from people, so throw this one out. Will this dehumidify my house? Yes, it will, in some regard. In air conditioning, I mean, it pulls out tons of water. You can see it all, right? But will it eliminate the need for a dehumidifier? Absolutely not. All right. You will still need a dehumidifier during the shoulder seasons, because this can only take moisture out whilst it's cooling. So if there's no call for cooling, it will not be taking moisture. And that is actually generally, kind of the 2 months after winter, the 2 months before winter. You're not cooling, but it's still really humid out, right? Like still really humid out. So you're still going to get that accumulation in your basement, and you're going to need your dehumidifier at some point anyways. Any more questions? The draw is going to be on Tuesday. We are going to email everybody the link so that they can sign up for it. So yeah, you make sure that you have it submitted by Tuesday. Yeah, a heat pump. So we're at 1:42 now. I mean, I'm okay to answer any more questions, but if you guys are good, then I am good too. I'm talked to death. All right, perfect. Oh, was there one more? Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right. We are going to be running these again. So, if you have any friends that you think might be interested, I'm going to try and kind of do this on a semi-regular basis. So it's always good to be able to actually see everything that we're talking about. So, if somebody's kind of like on the edge and doesn't really know, I'm more than happy to talk. Or you can come down to the showroom and see what's what. But thank you very much for attending. We'll get that link out to you in the next couple of hours. And hopefully we'll hear from you soon. If you have any questions, you can email us. We can set up appointments to come out and have a look for a heat pump. Call the office, email us, however you want. And thank you. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Oh, shit. I think I'm still there. The showroom is 50 Acreley Boulevard, Unit 7. So we're in Dartmouth here. It's all on our website and everything like that. You can look us up there too. Lots of good information on there. Thank you very much. What's that? 29?